Hello. Trying to get on here. Okay. Boom. Hi, everybody. Okay, buenas tardes. Happy Sunday. Hi, everyone. Welcome to Ask Dr. Lulu. I have Elise on Ask Dr. Lulu. Hey, girl. How are you? There's a delay on Ask Dr. Lulu. I'm not sure why, but that's okay. I'm just going to get started. You know, I never wait for anyone. So how is everybody doing? It's Sunday afternoon. So, of course, it's time for Ask Dr. Lulu. Forgive my slightly subdued demeanor today. We're talking about suicide, right? After all. So, for those of you who don't know me, my name is Dr. Lulu, aka the Momatrician. I'm a national keynote speaker, board certified pediatrician, and I speak on youth, bullying, depression, and suicide. And so if you've never seen me before, that's who I am. Hi, Kofo, and hi, Kathy Hubbard Gory. Okay, so that's all my highs for the afternoon. We're going to get started. So last week, if you watched last week, we talked about part one of suicide in Nigerian youth. What's the 411? And last night, we talked about just a brief overview of suicide, what it is, the definition, why am I speaking about it, who am I, I'm Nigerian born. We named about 16 people who have recently died of suicide. We named them, I thought that was neat. We also talked about something that I thought was neat. We talked about the things to stop saying and stop doing last week. And so I'm going to review that one because I want to make sure that we all get it. So where suicide is concerned, we want to stop using sniper. If you're in Nigeria and you have sniper in your home, please get rid of it today. We want to stop criticizing and mocking people who are depressed, anxious, or suicidal, because suicide is an equal opportunity disease. And if you hear my parakeets in the background, you know whenever I start talking, they start talking. These birds, I tell you. So stop criticizing. We talked about some myths. We busted about 6 of those myths, like it's a white disease, depression is a white disease, it's not real, it's going to go away on its own, it's a women's disease, you can pray it away. We talked about that. Not. We talked about the fact that medications make you worse, and that people that are depressed and suicidal are lazy. We talked about those as well. So, not a good thing. And then we mentioned the fact that we wanted to stop blaming people who are depressed and suicidal, or even worse, who have died by suicide, blaming them and making it look like they are at fault or they're guilty for some reason, hence the word commit. And so one of the things we said we should stop doing is using the phrase committed suicide. No mas. Everybody should be talking about committed suicide. If you know me, don't ever use the word committed suicide again. Okay, so that's really all I wanted to talk about. We mentioned briefly on the symptoms of depression, sadness, loss of interest in what you like to do, sleep disorder, sleep disturbances, suicidal ideation, suicide attempts, hopelessness, all of those things are part of depression. And while you can have reactive depression like I did, and almost I want to call it reactive suicidality, if I could even go there, you can also have real full-blown seasonal depression and all kinds of other things that can cause depression. So that being said, we're going to dive right into today's topic. So today's topic is suicide in Nigerian youth. What's the 411 part 2? Okay. And so we're going to talk about some reasons. What are the commonest reasons why people choose to die by suicide? As you know, yes, it is a choice because it's a decision that they make. However, it's not an easy decision to arrive at. So I think of all the research that I did and all the blogs I read and everything I looked at, it looked like family drama, relationship drama was like at the top. Believe it or not, whether you have depression or not, stuff going on in the family was one of the top reasons why people chose to die by suicide. That's one. Another thing is 54% of people who die by suicide actually do not have mental illness or mental disorders. Is that the word? Yes. So 54%, so a little over half of those people really don't have mental illness. And if that is the case, then what is the cause of this? So relationship problems, family problems, that's number one. Okay, financial problems is number two. Okay, and of the names that we called last week, this lady called Omolara, she actually named her mom as the reason why she was going to kill herself, because her mom either called her a witch or her mom was a witch, something. But she, in her suicide note, she mentioned that. Also, the gentleman called Prince and the gentleman called DJ XG, both of them had relationship problems, had issues with their spouses or their significant others, and took to die by suicide. The third thing is financial problems. If you're Nigerian, you know that financial problems is a big problem. Nigerians' economy is so unstable. Not that American economy is that stable. We had a lot of people die by suicide when we had the economic issue in 2008. So, I mean, we know people that just can't handle it when you have a lot of debt, or you don't have a job, you've gone to school, you got educated, you don't have a job, or you get a job and there's inequality, there's differential treatment, all kinds of things. But mainly financial problems are one of the reasons why people do choose to end their lives by suicide. Governance issues. Oh my God, if you're Nigerian, you know that the political climate is so unstable. There's kidnapping, there's shooting, killing. Of course, America is similar. We have bombs, school shootings, you know, all kinds of things going on in the world at large, really. So a lot of people don't respond too well to that. Hopelessness amongst youth. Almost close to that is joblessness in Nigerian youth especially. Maybe not American youth, but Nigerian youth, certainly they suffer from this issue of just hopelessness. You've gone to school, you've gotten good grades, and no jobs. No jobs. Just almost as bad as the inner city portions of America. We have people that are educated, no jobs, or they're not educated because they just don't have, they can't afford it, or, you know, the government is not helping, or whatever little issues. But either way, they have no jobs. Maybe they've been in jail, they came out, and now they have no jobs. They are marked for death. And even if you're not jobless, if you're a doctor like me, and you come out with the fact that you have mental illness issues or mental disorders or depression, I'm going to pick depression, which is what I had. When I came out with my depression, there were people like me, doctors like me, who were like, oh, be careful, don't say it too loud before they say, you know, you this and the other. And you and I know that things like that, that kind of backlash from your colleagues, can drive you to do the unthinkable. So of course, you and I know that it's not as easy. So to arrive at the decision to kill yourself, you should know it has taken a long time. Most people have been suicidal for a while, have been crying for help for a while, and then no one seems to be helping. And that is one of the reasons why they decide to end it all. So family drama, relationship drama, financial issues, governance issues, issues with economy, security, joblessness, hopelessness. Educational pressure is another one. In countries like Nigeria, India, maybe China, because China actually used to be, until the early to mid 80s, China had the highest rate of suicide in the world. And a lot of that comes from educational pressure from family members. Nigerian children must all come first. Otherwise, you're not a good child. You're a disgrace to the family. Asian kids the same. Indian kids the same. You dare not, be the first in your class. You dare not be now if all of us are being the first in a class, then who is second? But it's unrealistic. You need to learn your child and know which child is academically gifted, which child is musically gifted, which child is gifted for words. I mean, depending on what the child is gifted for, sports, and kind of channel your kids that way. But everybody being the best academically, you and I know that's not realistic. That is not even practical. But Nigerian children, oh my God. And so majority of the children I named last week, almost all of them had issues with academics. Either they couldn't get in, maybe their JAMB results were not good enough, if you're Nigerian and watching me, or maybe their JAMB results were good enough. They did get into school, but they got into the wrong maybe department that they wanted to get into, or they have no money. They have the JAM result is good, but they have no money to continue their education. And there's a lot of unrealistic pressure from family members for all of us to do well. All of us must be excelling. It's not possible. And that's why I love the country called Finland. They found the formula. They don't do any of that crazy, you must all come first. So if you don't know about it, look up the country of Finland and their educational system. We're not talking about them today, but that's a country to emulate when it comes to educational system and just realistic expectations. Okay, this girl called Lovette, the person called Aduba, and the person called Daniel, all three of them basically took their lives based on educational pressures from family and all the others. And of course, we can't leave out mental illness, because if 54% of those who die by suicide do not have mental illness, that means 46% of them do. And so it is a big issue. It's a big enough issue to talk about it. Depression, bipolar disorder, anxiety, schizophrenia, all of those things are real. And unless we start talking about them, and it's not your fault if you get, I'm going to use asthma for instance, or even cancer. Let's use cancer. Now, as long as it's not cancer that we can find a direct cause and effect, like Agent Orange or something. But how is it your fault that you're diagnosed with breast cancer, for instance? If it's something that's genetic, for instance. So if it's not your fault that you have breast cancer, a disease that is sure to kill you, then why is it your fault that you have depression, a disease that is sure to kill you, a disease that can run in the family, a disease that is familial? I mean, how is it that we blame and find fault in these people who have a diagnosis that they can't help? Whether it's reactive depression or endogenous depression, it doesn't matter. The fact that you're depressed, people should not judge you to the point of finding you guilty even before we start talking. It makes no sense. And in some countries like Nigeria, guess what? If you attempt suicide and you're caught, they put you in jail for 10 years. What is the meaning of that? So if you're just joining me, we're discussing suicide in Nigerian youth. What's the 411 part 2 today? And if you know anybody that should be watching this episode, please tag them. Please tag them, and let's keep going. Cult groups. Now, whereas it may not be called a cult in America, anybody who knows the American history knows of Waco, what happened in Waco, Texas. Anyone who knows history knows what happened in Guyana. So they have cults everywhere. And in Nigeria is not exempt. And some cults actually ask you to kill yourself. Case in point, this is not suicide, but this is homicide. This happened last week. A Nigerian father was advised by his pastor in his church that his ex-wife was a witch, and she had effectively bewitched her 3 sons, or his 3 sons, aged 10, 12, and 14, I think, maybe. 3 sons, that she had passed the witchcraft onto these 3 boys, and the father should find a way of killing off the 3 boys, because he and their mom were separated. Do you know that this gentleman, when he was caught by the police, because he fed or force-fed, he tied them up first of all, and then force-fed them this medication called sniper, and basically killed 2 of them. The 3rd one somehow magically, miraculously survived and ran for help. And when the father was accosted, he said his brother, who is married with his own children, told him that their pastor in their church had told him that his ex-wife, to tell his brother that his ex-wife was a witch and had bewitched their kids. I mean, even just telling the story is so ridiculous, but that is exactly what happened. And so he killed 2 of his 3 sons and said, he will have nothing to do with witchcraft. First of all, if you marry, let's just say there is witchcraft. If you married a witch, what does that say about you? Number 1, how stupid are you to kill healthy boys or girls, healthy children that God gave to you, knowing fully well that we have people out there looking for children and can't find? How can you live with yourself? But that's exactly what that gentleman did. So there are cults, And some cults actually ask you to kill yourself. Okay? So, that being said, religious, deeply religious countries, believe it or not, was actually listed as one of the reasons why people die by suicide. In a country like Nigeria, which there's no budging when it comes to religion, you're either a Christian or you're bad. You're either a Muslim or you're doomed. If you're none of those two, woe betide you. They are so rigid with their Christianity that, or their religion rather, that if you dare sway one way or the other, it's like you are from the devil and that's it. You're doomed and that's it. And when people find themselves in maybe doubting or having questions and they're not being supported by their pastor or their family members who are extremists, then what happens? They take to the hills. And so unfortunately, that is one of the reasons why people die by suicide. Rigid religious countries. And that is actually in the literature. You can look it up yourself. Okay? And so what are the fundamental risk factors? Why do people die by suicide? These Nigerian youth, why are they dying by suicide? So the two fundamental risk factors are, number one, obviously there's resilience issues. There are issues with resilience. Resilience is defined as the ability to fall and bounce back. A lot of these people lack adequate resilience. And that's why one of the things I teach in my book, hold on, bam, is resilience. The fact that you as a parent, you're not so busy telling your child that they have, making life so rigid, so hard for them that they can't sway one way or the other. And then they don't learn how to bounce back. And so a lot of these children suffer from just lack of resilience and, of course, difficulty with coping skills. Not everyone can handle the death of their father or the death of their mother or failure, or financial problems or relationship issues. Not everyone can handle that. I know I almost couldn't handle my divorce. I felt like I was a failure to no avail. Nothing you could tell me would make me feel better, that I'm not bad because I got divorced. Because in Nigeria, if you get divorced, you as a woman, you're essentially scum of the earth. It doesn't matter what happened in the marriage. I have an aunt whose husband effectively beat her to death. They would rather you stay in that marriage. That is the kind of mentality that they have. And that is why I had depression post divorce. Because I was like, oh my God, what will people say? Oh, God forbid, heaven forbid that I was being abused for nonstop in my marriage for 13 years. Oh no, you have to stay. That's what they tell you. And a lot of people have no way out. And then they seek for the hills. And so, lack of coping skills and lack of resilience. Two top issues with people that end up dying by suicide. Others include hopelessness. They just find no other way. And to them, they're actually a burden to you, the family members. Majority of them believe in their hearts that they're a burden to you. I know I thought I was a burden. And don't worry about the fact that I love my kids to death and I love my spouse to death. I still felt like I was a burden because I was a failure in my mind. And so I wanted out. A lot of people who end up taking their lives believe that they're more of a burden alive. And we need to support them. We need to show love like no other to them. And if you're ever lucky enough that someone voices to you that they feel like they want to die or they're suicidal, please don't take it as a joke. You are gifted. You are selected to be one of the last few people remaining on this earth that they actually confided in. And the worst thing you can do is say the wrong thing. Okay? Other risk factors, poor parenting. And I've already touched on this earlier on. Believe it or not, high expectations for every child is not realistic, and that is not good parenting. If you're a parent, check yourself. Okay? Over expectation, over regulation. Anybody who's watched Sound of Music, just give me a high five. You know about the Von Trapp family. That is not realistic. Your family is not your battalion. They're not your little military troop. But he was raising his kids that way. That is over-regulation. Overprotection can also be bad as a parent. check yourself. Over judgmental, being overly judgmental rather, as a parent. I am learning, very, very difficult for me, but I'm learning to not judge my kids so much. And so as much as possible, I try to have them sit down and let's have a little round table. And I let them voice their thoughts, and I voice my own thoughts. And I'm raising them, yes, I am, to voice their thoughts. It is important. I am not right all the time. Trust me, I'm learning that the hard way. Okay, and when you raise your kids, you know your kids. You cannot raise them to think and be free, and then you want to kind of bottle them up again. Those two things just don't go together. Okay? And of course, easy access to lethal means. Sniper, for instance, the number one choice of suicidal medication in Nigeria, is like right there in every chemist and every drugstore. And you know, it's like you just go to the chemist, let me have Sniper. It's actually rat poison. I'll talk to you guys about it in a minute. But it's easy access. For instance, people who have guns in their house, I don't care if you don't like me. I'm going to preach that you are more likely to have a fatal injury from that gun being in your home than you're going to use that gun on the armed robbery that's going to take place when you're at Walmart. And if you know me, I've said that many times before. Your gun is at home while you're at the gym. You're getting jumped in the alleyway while your gun is at home. But who else is at home? Your kids. Your kids at home with the gun. And if you think you're smart, your kids are smarter when it comes to finding that weapon. Okay? So please, oh my God. Anybody who doesn't know about this, look up Family Fire. I think it's called Family Fire. Yes, I think it's called Family Fire, which basically is the movement against which basically talks about family members dying from family-owned weapons. Look it up. I think it's called Family Fire, if I'm not mistaken. Okay, look that up. Poor support system, be it your friends, be it your spouse, be it your relatives, be it your doctor, be it your counselor. Poor support systems. As you all know, majority of people who die by suicide, I think, have been to their doctor or their medical provider about 1 month before that happens. And so lack of support from your provider is one of those risk factors. Of course, attitudes towards mental health illness. We already talked about that. And I just want to remove that word mental, honestly, because as far as I'm concerned, it's an illness. It's an illness that you didn't ask for. It's an illness that you don't want, but it's an illness that is, for the most part, treatable and even, I dare say, temporary when it comes to depression, depending on what kind. But suicide, on the other hand, is permanent. So it's a permanent solution to a largely temporary, spoken with a pinch of salt, problem. Okay? LGBTQ, and really when I say LGBTQ, I'm going to throw in everybody else who feels marginalized, feels ostracized, feels left out, whether it's because you're Muslim, or because you wear a turban, because you wear a hijab, or because you have dreadlocks, or because you have an African accent, or you have a thick Korean accent, or because you're from, I don't know, Australia, whatever. Anybody who falls into a group of ostracized persons are risk factors for suicide. Unfortunately, in Nigeria, I dare to mention, and even in America, lack of infrastructure, lack of appropriate access to medical help, a lack of appropriate access to mental health. Your doctors are not available. We don't have enough doctors. We don't have enough counselors, enough therapists. Most people who are in America, a big old fat country that has medical insurance, most medical insurances don't even cover for mental health illnesses. So it's almost like Nigeria, which doesn't have any at all. So, what are you people talking about here? We're basically the same, because most people that have mental illness don't even have access. They deny their claims. They discharge them. I had a mom that was talking about how her son a doctor that was talking about how a patient was left in the ER, holding in the ER for like 13 days, a suicidal patient. because there was nowhere to take him to. In America, in Florida. So it happens here too, lack of infrastructure. And so if you're just joining me, which I don't know if anybody just joined us, we're talking about suicide in Nigerian youth. What's the 411 part 2? But really, we're basically talking about suicide in general, okay? So we talked about the reasons why people die by suicide or choose suicide. We talked about fundamental risk factors for suicide. Next, we're going to talk about the modes or the choices that people make, the choice routes for suicide. How about that? The most widely used in Nigeria is something called sniper. And if you're Nigerian and you're watching me, please give me a high five, because you know what I'm talking about. Sniper is the most widely used, is a biochemical agent. In America, it's called diclovos, is DDVP, is 2,2, the biochemical name is 2,2-dichlorophenyl dimethyl phosphate. Yeah, big name for sniper. But it's the choice medicine. It's essentially rat poison. That's what it is. Okay? But then it's a newer form, because the old rat poison when I was young was called gamalin. And believe it or not, gamalin, I think, is banned in many countries, and I think even in Nigeria too. But we have sniper now, but it's no different. And I'll tell you about sniper in a minute. Also, hanging. Hanging is very common. When I was doing my keynote speech in October, one of the first and only to this date pictures on the internet that I found of someone dying by hanging, the actual picture of the boy hanging from the fan was a Nigerian boy. So hanging is another common way. And in Nigeria, believe it or not, gunshot wounds is one of the choices too. But one of the choices that is really picking up is jumping from the bridges. In America, you all know people actually fly. There's a story about a gentleman who flew from New Jersey all the way to San Francisco just to jump off the Golden Gate Bridge. Some people are crazy enough to want to die on Mount Everest, and so they walk up to Mount Everest, and on their way up, they kick the bucket. That's suicide as far as I'm concerned. So jumping off bridges is a big one. I know there was a big story about a Nigerian doctor recently, I think towards the end of last year or early this year, who jumped off Third Mainland Bridge. So it's becoming really like common now. Of course, slit wrists is old, but people still do that. Not a very big, that was like at the bottom for Nigerian youth, but certainly sniper was a big one. So what is sniper, you want to know? So first of all, sniper is a biochemical agent, is a rat poison, and the chemical name, like I said, is diclovos in America, or DDVP in the Western countries, or 2,2-dichlorophenyl dimethyl phosphate is the name. Is an organophosphate, is a pesticide, is banned in the European Union. Do you know? It's banned in the European Union. But where is it now banned? In Africa. So you see what I say? These folks, they ban these things because they know the toxicity and they send it to us and we use. I never knew that it was banned in European Union, but it's banned. So if you're watching me and you're Nigerian, like I said, today is the last day you want to keep. Last week, my mom joined us and she said one of her dogs had died from that. So this is a serious, serious problem, okay? So how does it work? What's the mode of action? Basically, it's an acetylcholinesterase inhibitor. And for the doctors or the medical people or even the pharmacists, anybody who's a scientist or who's done science in school, you know what acetylcholinesterase inhibitor. So that is the enzyme that it actually inhibits that enzyme which works at the synapses. I'm trying to kind of keep it as platonic as I can with the biochemical words here. But it works in the synapses, and what happens is it goes and deactivates that enzyme. And so the synaptic nerves, the nerves are not able to conduct electricity or conduct messages. And so effectively what it does is it paralyzes your nervous system. And it can cause a heart attack, it can cause decreased blood pressure, paralysis, and of course, whenever you have respiratory muscles being paralyzed, what happens? You die. And so it has a very, very rapid onset of action. It's a very easy thing. You just get the bottle, open the cup, the cap, and that's it. You drink it. And a lot of these people buy 2 bottles, 3 bottles. You only need a teaspoon, but they empty a whole ounce, 2 ounces, get another one. So these people really, really want to die. And it's very painful, you know. And they just stop breathing, and that's it. I'm trying to put this as humanly as I can, so that if you're watching me, even if you don't know how to be empathetic, you can start learning to feel sorry for someone who is suicidal. It's not something that they choose. Anyone who is happy, as you know, it's like when I filed for divorce and people were telling me, oh God, I can't believe you. I said, wait, do you know any woman who wants to leave their marriage? For all of you who have been born and your whole life, you've been living your whole life wanting to get married, why would you now suddenly want to leave the marriage if you're happy in the marriage? All women have been dreaming of their wedding day forever. Why would I want to leave a happy marriage? And so why would anyone who is happy in life want to kill themselves? Have you ever stopped to think about that? Last week I told you guys about the Nigerians and the comments, the vile comments that were on the pages of these children that died by suicide, the negativity, and how every minute they're calling God, and yet as they're calling God, they're being evil. You know, it's terrible, just terrible. But that's sniper for you. That is sniper for you. It's actually banned in European Union. But what do? They keep manufacturing it, and then they send it to the African countries. I was weak when I saw that. But that's reality for you. And so, if you're just joining me, we're talking about suicide in Nigerian youth. What's the 411 part 2? And so what do we do? What to do? What do we do? So the first thing, if you're depressed and or suicidal, please stop being in denial. Seek help. Talk to somebody. I have walked this walk, I know. I'm not just speaking just to be speaking. I have been suicidal. I have been depressed. I know. Stop being in denial. Just come out and ask someone. Or better still, rephrased, stop going into hiding. I can't vouch for everyone that's going to be around you, but I can vouch for the world, that we still have kind hearts in the world. We still have kind people in the world. And therefore, there are still people out there who will listen to you if you just reach out. So please reach out. Okay? And the opposite of that, for those of us who are not the ones that are suicidal, you need to start practicing acceptance. We need to start accepting these people as they are. No one is perfect. And if you're not depressed yet, it's only a matter of time. You know, it's going to happen. If it doesn't happen to you, it's going to happen to somebody you know. And so start accepting these people. And if you're depressed and suicidal, also start accepting yourself and the situation, and knowing that this is, for the most part, temporary. And if you just ask for help, there's help around the corner. Okay? So what are the action items for us? We have to love ourselves. We have to love others almost as much, if not more, than we love ourselves. If someone comes to you and tells you that they're sad and suicidal, do not make a mockery. Do not try to rationalize it. Someone who is depressed and suicidal is not rational. They're not rational, obviously. So don't start trying to rationalize with them. Tell them, I'm here for you. Let's go get help. I will come with you. And more importantly, follow up. People who have attempted suicide have a nearly 100% chance of dying by suicide within a year of that first attempt. So it is that serious. If someone that you know has been suicidal, do not leave them. Follow up with them. You've been blessed to be chosen to be around those people when they are suicidal. don't let that person die on you. And for those of you who are sad and suicidal and depressed, you can also try to volunteer. I find that for me, volunteering helps me with my blues a lot. And if you know me, you know I'm big on volunteering. Volunteer if you can. Yoga, they say, helps. Even if you're not flexible, start somewhere. If you don't want to do yoga, go for a walk. I'm an outdoors person. I love the outdoors. Go for a walk. Be at peace with yourself. Note, I have not called God and I have not called prayer yet. Because quite frankly, the kind of things I see Christians doing doesn't give me any hope, especially in America and of course in Nigeria, to ask anybody to reach out to a Christian, because I'm very disappointed on a daily basis what I see Christians, and I'm a Christian, but what I see you all doing. And so I haven't said that yet, because that's not my top. That's not my top. Stop comparing yourself to others, people. I know how hard that is, but don't compare yourself to others. Everyone has their own time of everything that's going to happen to them in their own time. And of course, last but not least, for those of you who pray, pray. Pray that God sends you to a good doctor, a caring physician. Pray that God sends you to a good counselor, someone who understands you, who understands from whence you come. Because not everybody who is a counselor is the counselor for you or the therapist for you. Pray that God sends you supportive family members. Please don't say Dr. Lulu told you to pray that your depression will go away, because you really can't pray it away. What you can do is get help. And yes, even though some of the medications at the very beginning part can have a side effect of suicidal ideation, for the most part, medications do help. So get to a doctor and get medication and get counseling, get therapy, and just get some help. And for the rest of us who are not depressed or suicidal yet, we need to band together. It does take a village to save a soul. And avoid the stigma. As you all know, I mentioned last week, the WHO, I think, has already put it out there that the stigma of mental illness, not the mental illness itself, but the stigma of mental illness is a global health crisis, is what's causing the global health crisis, the stigma, the tabooness of it, the fact that no one wants to touch it. And last week, my mom mentioned that in Nigeria, they don't discuss mental illness so that their kids can get married. Such a backward way of thinking, but it's real. Oh, don't tell them we have depression in the family. And it's everywhere. It's not only Nigeria, but we're talking about Nigerian youth, so she put that in. But you all know in America, we cannot be having this type of epidemic of suicide if we've been doing it right. We're all trying to be quiet. Nobody wants to talk about it, unfortunately. But it's here, and it's here to stay, unless we start doing something. Social media. Yes, and I know, thank God for technology, right? Thank God for social media. That's how come you can see me. Es verdad. Pero, social media. The statistics have it that in 2010, when the personal cell phone became a thing, we started noticing a rise in depression and suicide, almost parallel to the use of personal cell phones. So don't tell me that social media has nothing to do with it. It does. And while movies like 13 Reasons Why have been butchered by CNN as causing suicide rates to go up, I'm here to tell you that I don't believe it. And that's my own personal opinion. Because we already going back to 2010, have already seen a rise in suicides and depression, especially in girls, because of cyberbullying, because of imposter syndrome, because of the fact that everybody shows their happy pictures, nobody shows their sad pictures. I cry easily. If you know me, you know I'm a big crybaby. I won't hide it, because that's real. And I don't always put my happy pictures on Facebook. No. I am out there as I am. And the more people see us showing our real selves, maybe, just maybe, the better. Okay? So social media, of course, plays a huge role. And there's something called suicide contagion or contagion, depending on whether you say potato or potato. Suicide contagion, a big, big deal. When we get one suicide, we get another suicide, and a sister and a brother. And youth suicide, for those of you who are asking, I can't believe a small child wants to kill themselves. I can't believe an adult wants to kill themselves. And so youth behavior tends to, for the most part, parallel adult behavior. If adults were not dying by suicides, youth would not be dying by suicide. And so before you judge the next teen or the next child who dies by suicide, why don't you judge yourself for a minute and see that it is not something that anybody chooses, but kids are quintessential copycats. And when they see adults doing stuff, they're going to do stuff too. That's just the way it goes. Kids copy adult behavior. And so suicide is rampant in children because suicide is rampant in adults. Simple, point blank, period. And so, going back to not measuring your happiness with other people's happiness. I know it's hard to say that, but if nothing else I said today resonated, let that resonate. The fact that, first of all, you should stop mocking and making fun of people who are depressed and suicidal or have a diagnosis of mental illness, because it's real. However, come out and say it if you know you have it. Claim it. The sooner we all start talking about it, the better. I have come out with my depression whenever I was depressed, whenever I was suicidal, 4, 5, 6 years ago. And I got help and I'm better. You can't blame someone who has cancer if they have cancer that they can't help more than you can blame someone who is depressed because they can't help it. But you don't not give them support. And then when we all isolate them and then they die, then we're like, oh my God, nobody knew. Had I known, why didn't you come to me? Who told you that? Like I said last week, a lot of those youth that died by suicide in Nigeria, their Facebook pages were full of all kinds of cries for help. They were all talking about it non-stop, but no one appeared to be doing anything about it. They got likes and they got loves and they got hearts. And then after they died, oh my goodness, then they get 8,000 or more comments. Most of them not even positive. And as usual, that's all I have for you today. I'm a bit melancholic because it's that time of the month. It happens. But I got through it, and I got through with my speech, so I'm good. So to come, I have to end my talk with what's to come. And so this is the month of May. It is almost over, the month of mental illness awareness. And so I hope everyone who's watching me has had a taste of knowledge where mental health is concerned, because May was the month of mental health awareness. So to come next month for me, actually beginning next week, which goes into next month, I'm going to start taping my podcast. I'm so excited. I've been talking about it for a while. Now school is over. I don't have school as an excuse anymore. I'm going to start taping my podcast. So yes, I'm asking for guests. My podcast is called, of course, Suicide Pages with Dr. Lulu. Called Suicide Pages with Dr. Lulu. So be on the lookout. We're going to start. I have about 80 or more guests already, which is great, and thankful to God for that. But there are many, many more. And I want to talk to you if you've ever been personally or professionally touched by suicide. Not if you read it in the magazine. Not if you live in the same town. Well, yeah, that's kind of. I want to hear your success stories. I want to hear your struggle. If you've been suicidal like me, if you're a doctor who has treated someone, if you're a therapist who's had a patient, if you're a mother of a child who died by suicide, if your spouse, your sibling, I want to talk to you. And so please holler at your girl. Send me a message on Messenger and I'll put your name on my guest list. So that's coming up next week. So please spread the word. I'm so excited. Secondly, next month, I'm going to be in Bali for the second Sunday of next month. I may not be able to do my Facebook Live. I'll keep you guys posted. but I'm going to be doing some much needed R&R post graduation, and my 50th birthday finally get to celebrate it. And then of course in June I'm also going to be in Washington DC. So if you live in the DC area, please hit me up and let's get together and have a drink some water or something. I'll be speaking at the AMPA convention, the 25th annual convention of AMPA, Association of Nigerian Physicians in the Americas, and I'm going to speak on the same stage as Miss Chimamanda Adichie. And of course my topic is youth suicide. What else could it be? All right, then my events for July, I'll be having one on the 13th of July in Dallas, Texas, my Dr. Lulu's Parenting Your Teen workshop, as well as on the 20th of July, I'll be having one here in San Antonio. So please spread the word. If you have children who are age 8 to 18, please come out and let's hang out. Let's learn from each other. If you know people who live in these states, my flyers are all over my pages. Please share the flyers widely. And then in August, I'll be back in Charlotte, North Carolina, speaking at an event. Stay tuned for that. I'm going to keep you guys posted. So that's about it. That's all I had. Oh my God, we're at 46 minutes. Forgive me. I just didn't want to cut it and do another episode of this, so I had to kind of finish. But thank you all so much, as usual, for joining me. Kathy Hubbard, Jalpa Shah. Hi, girl. Judith Ayesin. Oh, wow, that's my classmate. Hi, sweetheart. Okay, then Ellis, of course, my girl. Bia Luna. Fran Sterling. Oh, I'm going to be seeing you in September. Yemisi, my sister. Shani Marion. Zelda Okia. Hi. Thank you so much for joining me, Zelda. You're always in the building. And on my personal page, wow, a bunch of people. We have Kofo. We have Shwanda Onwachi Robinson. We have pre-medical board member. We have Crystal Candy Girl. Hi. Sharon Waters. Veronica Garris. Naomi, my SFL. Tiffany Cotton. Hey, girl. Beverly Blackman. Christina Beagle. Hi, sweetie. Sita Bergui. Hi. Johnny Witherspoon. Kamisha Duncan. Hello. Tasora Moore. Hello. Chigozie Okafo. Hi, girl. Tyrone Welps. Buck Parker. Hey, Duck. Ifin Zebin Kemakolam. Hi, sweetie. Mfon Udokwa. Hi, Auntie. Richard Heath and Mary Lowe Mitchell. Thank you all so much for joining me. As always, I'll see you all next Sunday. We'll have a fresh topic. I don't know what it's going to be. Depends on what happens next week. If nothing happens, we'll just push on and I'll come up with something. So thank you all so much again. If you have any questions, please let me know. I couldn't read anybody's comments today for some reason. Maybe I just didn't have any comments, which is okay also. But I'll see you all next Sunday, okay? God bless you. Have a wonderful Memorial Day weekend. And remember to thank a veteran, okay? And I am one. Thanks. You're welcome. All right.